Dark Crisis issue 4. Joshua Williamson writing with Daniel Sampere on the art. Obviously, this is the big event going on right now. And this issue is a pretty solid mid-chapter in that it's kind of advancing all the various threads that are going on. It has a kind of a big ending that's, nothing necessarily new or special for an event like this, because it's, the Infinite Crisis is reborn. Like, here we go.
Yeah, it's a crisis to its T.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like this is paying homage to the original Crisis on Infinite Earths.
I mean, they all have to some extent, let's be honest.
Yeah, but this one feels especially so. So... I
mean, that's just because Pariah's the villain, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really making you think of that more than any other ones have. So yeah, it starts off, Hal's in the fake Green Lantern world where John Stewart's been kept. And lo and behold, Barry comes running in. So this was timed nicely with the Flash book, where Barry has just become, aware of where he is, and he's running through all these worlds, and I do like his entrance here, where he says, you might say Hal's brave, and then turn the page and it's him running in bold. I think the way he pops with the green background, because everything in this world is a construct, does look quite nice. So
looks nice. Also, the amount of disrespect Hal has for Kyle and John and the like was very hilarious to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Well, because they're not real. This is not real Kyle.
Yeah, I know, but I found it funny. Just he was shooting from the hip.
Yeah, so Barry kind of contextualizes things a bit here. All the Justice League are all split up into these worlds, and we have to go get them. So it was nice to have Barry and Hal interact. It felt kind of old school. Felt nice to have this friendship back.
I feel like it's been a minute since we've seen them.
It does feel like it's been a while.
Because Hal's been off doing whatever in whatever book. So, and Barry's been busy. So yeah.
Yeah. So we cut to the sort of the current whatever exists of a Justice League on Earth, which is John and Mr. Terrific and Donna and some of the JSA are there, and they're talking about this dark energy at the end of the edge of the multiverse, which is behind everything, the Great Darkness, all that stuff, and we get kind of into, there's maybe more to it implied in this issue, the dark. So the Great Darkness, in theory, shouldn't really have a motive. They compare it to like the Night Sky. The Night Sky and shadows don't have a motive. They just simply are. It's almost like something's corrupted the Great Dark, which sounds like we're going to get a big villain reveal later on, doesn't it?
Yeah. So they were talking like before there was everything, there was the Great Darkness, but the Great Darkness just is, right? Like it just exists. It's not good. It's not bad. It has no goals but to exist, and someone is weaponizing it. So I thought that was a nice. Thought that was a nice little twist, especially considering what we've gotten from like the right hand of darkness and what it did to Darkseid. It's like, who could be this powerful to wield this?
Yeah, I don't know right now. I suspect it'll probably be a big reveal maybe at the end of next issue, given that we're not there yet. But we have Nightwing feeling horrible about Gar, who's lying in a hospital bed, and we get a great little scene with him and Alan Scott, which... It's really nice to have the JSA interacting with these characters being part of the world again, but it's especially nice because we know they're getting a book after this, so it's not like... Because I think part of me would be worried that it would maybe like, okay, they're here, but they're going to be kind of dead at the end of the event or something, because DC don't want to keep them around in any long-term capacity. It's nice to know that in some way they're going to still be around afterwards, so that I don't have to worry about it. It's comforting.
And Alan brings back, since coming back from Earth Omega... So that's in storyline where they've been. Yeah. Is on that other Earth that we saw at the end of the last event. Which I had to go back and remember because it's not like it's been addressed properly since then.
No, it's been a while. I did like a couple of lines of dialogue here. He's trying to give Dick this pep talk to come back and sort of like, lead the troops, as it were. But he talks about how these young characters working with the old ones, these legacy characters, they want to show that they can carry the legacy of those who have fallen. And he puts his hand on Dick's shoulder and says, "But we need the one who did it first." And we always love when Dick's kind of respected as the original legacy character, because he is. He was the first. Robin was introduced in Batman or Detective. Like it's in that first batch of issues.
Yeah, I feel like I should know, but I don't.
Like it's early in the first Golden Age omnibus. It's quite early on.
But Yeah, I do like that, and it makes him feel more important. Like he's a keystone of the DCU. Um, and especially coming from Alan Scott, who like when I think of Golden Age, it's him and Jay Garrick that come to mind first.
Yeah, that's the two I think of first.
So that coming from him makes it feel that much special.
Yeah, so this is all very nice. Dick's in silhouette for a lot of this because he's being moody and dark, and it's it's almost like for a moment he's forgetting that he's Dick Grayson and not Bruce Wayne. He's sitting in the shadows, So we get a continuation of the Legion of Doom stuff where Black Adam goes to them because he doesn't believe the young heroes can do what's necessary. And
this jerk.
Yeah, so I actually kind of liked how this progressed, where he comes here, he's trying to convince them, Luthor and all, that to help fight Deathstroke and co. because they're working for the Great Darkness, and this is not good for us. We should do something about it. And basically what happens is Deathstroke and all of his army, who notably are all in black chains, so it's it's like they're all being controlled in some way,
right?
Come and fight the Legion of Doom. So we effectively get the attack on Titan's Tower, but with the Legion of Doom here. Just this big battle of the villains, which eventually leads to what looks like all of the Legion of Doom also being infected with the Great Darkness. So presumably next issue, they're all going to be under the control of it.
Right.
So
they didn't fare any better than, or they actually fared less better than the Titans did. So being that they got all infected.
Yep.
So real quick, it was Detective 38 that he came in. So 11 issues. It was within that first year.
Yeah, I knew it was super early. It wasn't long at all. Yeah, and you got Pariah, and he's basically saying that Barry and Hal think they're helping by going and getting all the Justice League members, but them running through the various universes he's made is actually speeding up the process, and the spread of the Great Darkness is also fueling his new multiverse, which he's building. So he's sort of cackling and laughing. Flash and Barry get to an Earth where he believes Batman is here in this sort of like clock-looking world. There's like gears everywhere.
Yeah, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Art Deco, steampunk Earth, which I gotta give Bruce credit.
I wonder if
that being his ideal planet.
See, I'm wondering if there's a swerve here that this is not the real Bruce this year, because we've not had Batman's one-shot yet to confirm that this is his real world, so I'm wondering if they're going to pull a swerve on us where this isn't really him.
Maybe, but when they give us peeks of the rest of them, it looks like the ones that we've seen in it does. Solicits. So
it does, it matches up with the Superman one that we've seen already and stuff like that. But I was just thinking, maybe they're going to swerve us here just because we don't really know if this is Batman's real world yet. But and then we have Alan Scott taking well, it's not really the Trinity, the young Trinity, because it's not Damien. No. It's Dick with Superman and Yara, but he takes them to see Justice League Dark, who are all drunk and miserable about what's going on.
It's Bobo and Constantine, who, let's be real, that's kind of their default states.
Well, yeah, Man-Bat's not there anymore though. Zatanna's apparently dead. So
well, and they have a Harry Potter picture of Zatanna because you don't want to make statues with magic people, because that always ends up, which that made me laugh. Because the number of times we've seen statues used as weapons against our heroes is funny. But yeah.
Yeah, so Swamp Thing's there. In fact, two Swamp Things are there. Presumably the newer one that is referenced here has to be Levi. Yeah,
but they never call him by his name. They call him like the Sproutling.
Yeah, well, they never call the other one Alec either, so I mean, we don't really,
that's true.
We just have to take it for... But, so I don't know. But he says he's only been in his role a brief time, so unless they're trying to pull some sort of weird thing later, I have to assume this is Levi from...
It's got to be Levi, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, Swamp Thing references the previous Crisis and all that stuff. We get more of the fight between the Legion of Doom and Deathstroke's forces. So there's a lot of build up in this, and then it wraps up with, as the Legion of Doom are being affected, this is kind of fueling what Pariah is doing, and the final page is the infinite Earths are reborn, and it's all the Earths coming out of his hand. I quite enjoyed this issue as a middle chapter. It doesn't necessarily have like a full story on its own that it feels satisfying by the end, but I liked all of the teases in it throughout. It had 3 plot threads. It kept them all going. and by the end I felt like I got a reasonable chunk of the story. Ultimately, this is the kind of chapter that will read better once you can read the whole thing together. Just by its nature, that's what it is. But I thought the cliffhanger at the end was fun, and felt classic Crisis DC cliffhanger. So I was into that. And I'm always for putting Dick on a pedestal. So anything that any character's giving him a pep talk where they talk about why he's important, I'm always a sucker for it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it's Swamp Thing that brings up remembering Alexander Luthor.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we've seen in the other Swamp Thing books, how he can or in Justice League Dark, he can travel between the multiverses. So I wonder if that's going to come into play maybe later, because the Green's all connected at a certain level. Also, bring up Alexander Luthor here, which this seemed to be his goal in the original, or in Infinite Crisis, was to bring back the multiverse. And
that could be a seed, for...
And he kind of did it.
No pun intended, since we're talking about Swamp Thing.
But he kind of did it with the whole 52, but or Earths, but not fully.
Who knows?
So,
Alexander Luthor could be the influence that's somehow, controlling the Great Darkness. I think, obviously that's I glossed over that when we got to the Swamp Thing because we already talked about the debate about how, because it's from that scene that it comes up that the Great Darkness isn't supposed to have a motive or have a purpose. It just is. It's just a simple thing that exists, and it's always going to exist, and that's okay. But it's being controlled and used for something. So it's this weird Ouroboros thing where, like, having it turn out to be Alexander Luthor is kind of fun, and it'll give me, I'll pop for it a little bit, and we'll have some fun reading it. But there is kind of this consuming thing of we're doing Alexander Luthor again in a crisis with Pariah again in a crisis, it's always going to be revealed to be something it was before, instead of doing something genuinely kind of new with the concept.
Also, Williamson knows his continuity, and he knows his DC history, and I feel like that might just be a red herring, because I still don't know what could be because Alexander Luthor could transmute matter and stuff, right? But for him to be able to wield the Great Darkness and beat Darkseid, that would put him at omnipotent godlike levels. And I don't know if that's the story. This here.
I will say this. I think whoever's controlling the Great Darkness or whoever's infected it, I don't think that's a character who was already that powerful. I think it's someone who is now more powerful than they used to be, if that makes sense.
And I just think it's someone that's in the shadows. I don't think whoever can manipulate Pariah. But that's why I just think that it's them bringing Alexander Luthor up here, and then just that's what he wanted in Infinite Crisis, was to bring back his multiverse, because this Earth didn't deserve, and he weaponized Superboy Prime to punch reality and all that stuff. So. I think similar goals, but someone's working Pariah.
Yeah. Well, that's worth mentioning though, just to clarify. It's not necessarily directly influencing Pariah, because it was established last issue that Pariah's kind of got his own goals that are separate from the darkness that he thinks he can get away with. So there's something that's infected the Great Darkness, but Pariah might not be doing exactly what the Great Darkness wants. No, at least he thinks. I mean, maybe he's played into the Great Darkness's hands, or whoever's behind the Great Darkness, he's played into their hands. But
at the end of the day, he's just trying to bring his Earth back, right? That's his goal.
Well, not necessarily. Pariah right now wants to just create infinite Earths. He wants to make tons of them. I think my expectation, if it's not Alexander Luthor, is that whoever it is, hopefully is a surprise and the motive makes sense. But I don't think it's someone who already had this kind of omnipotent power. I think it's going to be someone who either died seemingly or went away in a previous event or big story that is being brought back for this, and is when I died, I went into the ether and I started to take control because now I'm not a man or anymore, or whatever. Something like that. I mean, I don't know who, but
I don't know either. No one comes to mind, but I'm sure when it's all be revealed, we'll be like, okay.
I hope so, because there is a chance it will land That's it. Okay, all right. That's
Yeah.
you know. I mean, this was an enjoyable middle chapter. I liked a lot of the interact. I liked Hal and Barry together. I liked the scene with Dick and Alan Scott, and I liked kind of the build to what's going on. But at the same time, like I totally get why if you're sick of like crisis level events and stuff like that, if you're just not into this, like I would totally understand that it's kind of doing a greatest hits almost, and a lot of comic book events are kind of guilty of that. Like ever since the first one, in some way, they're always just kind of regurgitating what the original event kind of was. So, all right, Matt, what are you giving Dark Crisis?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
I'll just give it a straight 8, I think. We didn't talk too much about the art, other than just a little bit of Barry's introduction, but I do think Sampere is a really good artist, and the way he handles, Dick and Alan's scene, there's a really great thing there where, because it isn't all silhouette and shadows, but then Alan's light, his green light starts to, glow onto Dick's face and stuff like that. There's a lot of really nice kind of playing with the lights and the shadows in that scene in particular. And he gets to draw a lot of villains here, and they mostly look pretty great. Black Adam's scowling at Lex Luthor and vice versa and all that stuff. So, generally quite enjoyable.